So what's here today? Same thing as yesterday. Same thing as tomorrow. And what is that? It's the individualized, perfect, whole, and infinite expression of all that lives. It is constant, it has been eternal, it will always be unfolding itself. Last week we talked about the idea of what is God? And we called it many different names, and we really come to the understanding it is universal mind. It is divine intelligence. It is the thing itself. It is that which is constantly creating and recreating everything out of itself. You see, the divine becomes what it thinks by becoming that. So what happens is the divine is forever changing and rearranging and living itself in a perfect harmony. It doesn't work at it. It's just its nature. And so when people ask, so what type of philosophy do you teach in religious science? Is it materialistic? Is it theistic? Is it all of these? Here's the best one that I've come up with so far, and that is we are panentheist. P-A-N-E-N, theist. And what does that mean? It means that we are, or God is, the entire universe. But it's more than that, because God is the seen, which is the entire universe, and yet God is the unseen. God is the unformed. God is all of that and more. See, there can be no definition put on this idea that we call God, this idea that we call universal mind. To put a definition on it would be to limit it, to make it not grand. So the question I always ask when people are saying they were defining their God and they come up with a limitation, I said, so how small is your God that you can limit it? You see, God cannot be limited. So we leave it open and we say God is the seen and yet is the unseen, the unformed, the to be and the yet to be. So that's this idea of what God is, but we're going to explore something else. So if God is all of this, how does this work? How is it that this God presence works? And it really comes down to a very simple statement. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. Sounds very simplistic, isn't it? But when you're looking at a divine mind, when you're looking at yourself and you realize that you're so much more than this physical body. So what is it? Are you the mind, all these neural pathways connecting that have habits of thinking? Or is there something that is beyond that, can sit back and observe the human mind thinking, observe this body, and is that what we would call consciousness? And so if that is consciousness, then what are we? Well, we're the individualization of the whole consciousness, because consciousness is infinite. But yet that perspective through which we live, through which we create, is the individualization through which God gets to experience itself in infinite ways by using that consciousness, by giving that consciousness the freedom to do, be, have, and do anything it desires. So there is no God out there judging us. There is no one we have to please to get in good graces, because as heaven and hell exist, they only exist as states of mind. They are states of mind we experience based on the thoughts that we have created, and we can shift out of an experience by simply redirecting our thoughts. It is so clear to me that each of us is a perfect and whole individualization of that consciousness. There isn't a human being alive today that will live in the future that has ever lived before that is not perfect in every way. Because at any moment of time, we can shift our thought, and in the shifting of that thought, we immediately start to shift our experience. One of the things that Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind, talked about was this idea of love and law. And so when we look at the idea of love, love is that aspect that we call God. It is the thing itself. And law is the way it works. So there is an infinite law that is everywhere present. It's here, right now. It's right where I am. It's right where you are. There's no place you cannot find law. And the only purpose of the law is to create. And so when we use that law, we're using it with our thoughts. And most of the time, we're using that law unconsciously through our thoughts. And that law takes it and accepts whatever we say, and it creates from it. So let's look at the aspect of this law. Because when we talk about this from a religious science perspective, that doesn't seem very personal. It doesn't seem like there's this personal aspect to the divine. But yet, if you think about it, that the law responds to the sum total of your thoughts, the conscious and the unconscious thoughts that you create, the law is very personal to you. Because the law is always going to give you, without any question, exactly where the sum total of all your thought is. So to that degree that the law is always demonstrating to you, it's personal to you. And the second you shift, the law shifts. The law is going to move as you move. It's like that process. It's just moving in directions that you choose. You are the rudder of the ship, and the law goes where you point the rudder. It takes that ship right where it is and where it's going. So the law is very personal. But here's the other side of it, because God is both the yin and the yang. It's the male and the female. It's the infinite and the finite. The law is also everything, and it's personal, but it's impersonal as well. You see, the law doesn't care what you think. It will give you the sum total of it. So if the process is that you're thinking with a majority of thought in an unconscious way about disease, if you have bought into this idea of the flu season, if you bought into that idea and that's the sum total of where you think health is, you are susceptible to having that experience, because the law doesn't know anything but to give you that which you think about. The idea that we come to understand in the human form, where we're using the individualization of that law to create experience here now, is how can I shift the sum total of my thought so that I have the desired experience? How can I feed my mind with only thoughts that are of health? How can I not buy into the consciousness that's permeating in society? Because here's what happens in society. Everything that's happening out there is an average. Would you agree? It's an average. There are people having worse experiences. There are people having better experiences. That worse or better is simply based on the fact of where is their thought process. Because the law is impersonal. And here's the thing, you can't escape the law. The law is everywhere. It's always working. It doesn't matter. If you're thinking a thought about someone that has hurt you in the past and you're going there and you're thinking, I hope something bad happens to him, the law is hearing that. And what the law is hearing is that you don't believe in oneness. Because the second you wish for something not nice for someone else, you're really mirroring it back to yourself. Because if you truly love yourself, and you respect the aspect that you are the fullness, the allness, the perfection of the divine right here and right now, there's no way you can have a thought that would look at anyone else without that same fashion. You see, when Jesus was doing this great work on planet Earth 2,000 and some years ago, he said, love God above all else. Understand that there is this infinite power and presence that is radiating in and through all things, that is there in you, as you, experiencing as you, and that your power comes from within as you tap into that. He knew that, and he knew that when you tapped into that power that was in, you were not only loving God, but you were loving yourself. But he was so wise to say that not only are you loving yourself when you're doing that, but the natural outpicturing is you must love others. Because if you don't love everyone, if you don't see perfection of God in everyone, then you're not looking in the mirror seeing the perfection of God in you. You see, we've been brought up in the society that we live in with an idea of conditional love. Conditional love means if you do something for me, then I'll reward you with this. There's always that give, yin, yang, back and forth. Unconditional love means just accepting life as it is. Just accepting life as it is and seeing that everyone you meet is in their perfect place at this perfect time. And no matter what that place is, they can shift it, they can change it, they can have a whole new and perfect experience. What I came to understand as I continue to evolve, that we hear this message on Sunday, wherever we're going to receive our message, we hear it. And we expect our lives to change, and it doesn't happen that way. Because it's about going deeper with this message. This message is something that you study. It's something that you implement as a practical aspect of your daily life. And the people that I have witnessed that have gone on this journey, that are making tremendous changes and living the life of their dreams, are those that have a daily practice, a daily way of connecting through meditation, a daily way of directing the power through prayer. So I want to say this. This is a different way of saying something than I think I've ever said it before. And I said, it came to me in meditation, that the true purpose of prayer is not so much to make things happen as to realize our relationship to God. It is not so much to make things happen, but we've been taught that since we were children, haven't we? We've been taught this idea that, Father, I lay me down to sleep, and we give thanks for my mom and my dad, and we're taught about it's bringing something into us. But in reality, all prayer is that act that we consciously would choose to reconnect with that which we've always been into the divine oneness. Now here's the beauty. When you are in the divine oneness and you're aligned there, the thoughts that you have that create automatically will demonstrate. So this idea that you're directing the power, you are, but you can't get to directing the power till you know your connection, till you know your oneness. And that's the aspect of what prayer means. It's going within, feeling, sensing, knowing, hearing, embodying the oneness not only in you, because you cannot see your oneness and not see it for someone else. When you're in that state, the Greeks would call it a state of telos. It means you see this side and you see this side, and everything comes into balance. And when you come into balance right in the center, that is the experience of the divine. It's not when you're real high. It's not when you're real low. It's when you understand that there's a full balance in life, and that balance is existing in your life. So when we talk about the idea of meditation, and we're in that meditative state, and we released our thoughts, and our mind is in that most peaceful place where it's not thinking one side or the other, it is in a complete balance of almost no thought. It's focusing on the breath, just the simple idea of the breath. We get into telos, and we become a creative center, a conscious creative center. And so what I like in my daily practice is I like to meditate. I like to go into that center. And then I start my day by putting my intentions out there, that I will experience this in my relationships. I will demonstrate a healthy, vital body. Abundance is mine now. You see, I've tilled the soil. I've tilled it, I've fertilized it, I nurtured it. And all I'm doing then by my thoughts is I'm planting that seed into this perfect soil. And this perfect soil will always say yes to whatever I plant. You see, that's how the law works. The law doesn't care what seed you take, but it's going to allow you to plant that seed through your thought. And the law is going to give you exactly what that seed that you planted is. You see, the law is there ready to give you anything that you want. The question is, have you opened up to become receptive to receive that which you are seeking? Abraham talks about this in her work. She talks about the idea that you have to be able to allow the demonstration. You see, in order to allow something, you have to be able to be receptive to it. In order to receive something, you've got to become a vibrational match to that which you are seeking. You see, you can't attract money when you're vibrating what? Lack. You cannot vibrate health and attract illness. It's impossible. If you are vibrating health, you must continue in your healthy thing. If you are vibrating unconditional love, your relationships will be unconditionally loving. It violates everything we've been taught. This idea that in order to be in relationship with another human being, we must communicate so well that they understand my needs and they meet them. Poppycock. All of you in relation, all you women that want your men to meet your needs, poppycock. Let me say that. All you men who want women to meet your needs, poppycock. You have to become the person who would live in the relationship that you desire. And when you become that, it's natural for you to give. It's natural for you to listen. It's natural for you to love. And when you become that, that must come back to you. Now, remember, a demonstration of a prayer is an evolutionary process. So as you become something, you're becoming it gradually. You don't shift overnight and become something. It takes time to become it. So as you're shifting yourself, the experience that you're drawing in will gradually shift. It's not going to be an overnight thing that if I start listening to my partner, they will appreciate me more. It's going to be a process. You see, and the idea is that we're eternal. We are the individualizations of God, and God is eternal. Therefore, we are eternal. So this process of unfoldment is one that goes on for eternity. So let's not give away tomorrow. Be present now. That the perfect relationship that I'm able to have right now is this, and I'm going to revel in it. I'm going to be joyous in it. My perfect abundance right now is this bank account, and I'm going to be grateful for it. And I'm going to know that it is expanding in this and every moment. My health right now is this. And I know that every moment I can create a healthier life, and I'm doing that right here, right now. So we're always living in what? Gratitude. You see, that's the greatest seed that we plant into the law. Because when the law hears that you are grateful for something, the law says they want more of it, and it automatically starts bringing more of what you're grateful for. So we talked about this idea of the law. This aspect of God that is constantly recreating itself out of itself, becoming the thing itself that it is creating. It does it impersonally. It does not care what you think, what you plant. It's going to give you exactly to the ability that you've created in your mind will be your experience. It's personal to you because it's going to give you what you think. So anything you desire, it will respond to your personal needs, to your personal desires. This law is everywhere present. It's always present. It never leaves. So its availability is always. It is infinite. Here's the final thing about this magnificence of God that we are. We have perfect freedom. We have the freedom to create anything we desire. And because God loves itself so much, it allows itself that freedom as us. It does not care. Did you hear that? We have an uncaring God. Why does God not care? Because God cannot be hurt. We cannot be hurt. It is the human illusion that gets hurt. It's the ego that gets hurt. It's the body that gets hurt. But the essence and allness of the divine that we are, that is living forever and ever and ever, can never, ever, ever be hurt. So God doesn't need to care about itself because there's nothing other than God to inflict anything on God. You see, if God is all there is, what can God experience that's not God that could cause it pain? It can't. But we live in a state of duality, and in that state of duality and consciousness that we live in, we can have the polar opposite experience. But when we come back and we go into telos, we come back to that center point, the pain disappears. The self-judgment disappears. The grief, the blame, the anger, all of that disappears when we come back to that state of oneness. Your challenge is to find a way to build such a joyful life that every day you look forward to finding that way to be in that state of oneness. Because the second you get yourself into that state, your whole world shifts. Your whole life becomes more because you have taken power. That power is yours right here, right now. The question I'm going to ask you right now, are you willing to accept that power? Are you willing to make a commitment to yourself never to be small again? To never think of a God that is so small that it has limits. And if you're going to think about a God that's so small, that's not small and does not have limits, then you must look at yourself. And you must say, I don't have any limits. I can do anything I choose. And let me tell you, no matter where you go, the law is there. No matter where you go, God is. No matter where you go, you and you and you, all of you are perfect. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.